In here, we have some amazing statues and megaliths you're going to want to look at. These are three of the largest monuments found at Venta. These could be Olmec colossal heads. This is impressive. Brand new piece here at Venta Museum. Never seen this before. These are the incredible basalt columns. There's hundreds of these at Venta itself. Why is he made of granite and the rest are made of greenstone like jade and serpentine? Wow, these are incredible. These are three of the largest monuments found at Venta. We're here in the museum of Venta. The site is just over there behind us. These were found on the southern part of the site in a small kind of plaza area. And these are made of sandstone. And these come from 100 kilometers away to the south. What's interesting about these could be Olmec colossal heads. Although there's some controversy about that, because you can actually see, like on this one, arms and legs and like a small face with a large helmet, and it's pretty much the same on all three of them. If we look at them closely, you can kind of see this. So you have like the kind of monumental headgear, but then you have arms and legs kind of in a crouched position and a figure here with the giant helmet. So it's quite confusing. It's almost like a halfway mix between an Olmec colossal head and like a throne or just a monumental statue like we find in the Olmec world. We have a smaller version here. Again, we have a similar thing where we have kind of a small face, but legs and kneeling position underneath. These are fascinating though, aren't they? Just absolutely massive carved monuments. Different type of stone. That's what's so strange. This is one of the only places where we have sandstone, and it's brought from 100 kilometers away to the south of here. It's almost on the Pacific coast. Then we have this one here. This is like 35 tons. So this is like only 5 tons less than the largest Olmec head at Lakobata. Incredible. So we have one of the information boards here, and this just shows you what is going on. And look, you can see, like, it's got different arms, legs, the small head, the squatting body, and other such things. And if we turn it over, you can actually see exactly where they were found, which is in the southern area of the site, which is known as D7, the area D7. And this was never excavated in the 1940s or 50s by Matthew Stirling and his team. This was a much later discovery. In fact, even though they were reported, these three giant statues, these possible heads, they weren't actually uncovered until 1987. So on the lower part there, you can see what looks like an arm, but I think that's actually a leg coming round. And you have the smaller faces and then the kind of giant helmets. So they're really strange. They're like a mix between an Olmec head, which would be rare if it's made of sandstone, and just monumental sculpture. And on the back here, it's flat. And that's what gives it the impression that it could actually be a colossal head, because we have these indentations on the back like this. Then we have the smaller one here, and you can kind of see the shaping around it. Really badly worn. But this, again, it just looks like it's a very badly worn Olmec colossal head. That's monument 52, this one. But you see arms coming down here. So we know they recarved heads from thrones. So maybe there's a similar situation going on here. You see like the sort of axe marks in it, different indentations. But then we have this really flat one here. If you look at this one from the side, this is monument 54. It really does look like it's a colossal head, but this is more like a kind of almost like a stelae. Then you have the knees at the base, and then the arms, and you've got some details just here. Some of the details have been preserved. And we have the giant hat kind of on top. And then again, we've got the cut marks and the kind of indentations all down the back here. And the fact that they were only discovered and excavated in 1987 shows you that excavation and discoveries are still being made in the Olmec world. But anyway, we've looked at these heads. In here, we have some amazing statues and megaliths you're going to want to look at. This is impressive. Brand new piece here at Venta Museum. Never seen this before. This is clearly a new discovery because it's still on polystyrene, and it shows this feminine aspect with a cavity behind, suggesting it's some kind of fertility ritual stone. And this really does look like it's a representation of a female vulva. That is incredible. Look at this. That is something else. It could be something completely different. But it could be like legs coming down the side. You can just about make out there with the red on it. They're going into the Earth Mother itself. If you actually go behind here, there's actually like a cavity which then leads out to the kind of vulva area. It's almost like you're coming into the body of the goddess. It's incredible. These are the incredible basalt columns. There's hundreds of these at Venta itself. Now, these weren't just used for the tombs, which we'll have a look at in a moment. There was 3 or 4 of these amazing dolmen-like tombs, but they also surrounded like the main plaza to the north of the pyramid before you reach the end of the site. And also later, on one of the later levels, they created these 2 extra kind of altar rooms. Again, they were surrounded by these. So when you look at the old film footage of the site, you can see how much basalt was used. Hundreds, if not thousands of these stones transported from nearly 80 kilometers away in the Tuxtla Mountains. These are just an incredible part of the engineering skill and design that the Olmecs used here at Venta. So here we have the 16 figures that were found deep under the ground at Venta, underneath kind of one of the main areas, just to the kind of north or east of the area in the northern part of the site. Now, these were buried in situ. There's 16 figures and there's 6 other pieces, like kind of jade celts. Now these are fascinating. These are made of serpentine. There's a few made of jade, and there's one at the back actually made of granite. He's the only piece in this collection here that is actually made of granite. The rest are jade and serpentine. So why is the granite guy leaning up against the monoliths, or the representations of the monoliths, which look like jade celts, but actually they could be representations of what we see behind here, the giant basalt columns, which were known to be found all over the site. Why is he made of granite and the rest are made of greenstone, like jade and serpentine? Fascinating nonetheless that this was buried deep under the ground, and then it was actually then forgotten about. Then 100 years after it had been buried, someone dug in during the Olmec era, deep in, had a look at them, and then filled in the hole that they created to have a look at them, and then reburied it. And it was only discovered again in the 1940s by Matthew Stirling and his team. The 2 individuals were found in this giant basalt tomb. 2 young individuals. They were thought to be teenagers. And this is called Mound A2, where this was found within. There was 3 or 4 of these along this dead straight line, going right along the kind of axis of the site, which was 8 degrees off north, west of north. In it were found, it was like covered in red cinnabar. So were the skeletons. There was jade offerings. And it makes you wonder why they were placed specifically along this alignment through the site. Something we're going to look at when we go out to the site itself. And you can see it being excavated in the video I'm going to show here, which was recorded in the 1960s by Berkeley University of California from the National Geographic footage that they took in the 1955 excavation. There was also excavations in 1942 and 43 by Matthew Stirling and his team. So it was partly buried, although some people have suggested these may have originally been on the surface. But we see examples of these. We'll see an example at La Venta Park. There's what is a reconstruction also at the Mexico National Museum of Anthropology. But these are massive. These are like dolmen type structures. And in it were found jade offerings, a red kind of clay which was coloured by cinnabar. And also this is where skeletons were found, even though they were mostly disintegrated by the time they were discovered. This is number 25 and 26, two pieces that are actually together, and it has some incredible kind of imagery on here with the headdresses, the kind of celestial beings potentially. You got like the kind of shape here, which is like the jaguar motif. So there's 5 carved stone slabs, which we see here like steles behind me. These are absolutely fascinating. Now these were erected at the southern foot of the principal pyramid. And their arrangement in the museum is similar to how they were actually found. We'll see some replicas out there as well. They're wearing headdresses, their faces show serrated eyebrows, almond-shaped eyes, flat noses, and a mask which hides the upper lip and shows only the gums with one central tooth and the fangs. In some cases, the fangs represent serpents. They've all got ear ornaments like we find on some of the Olmec colossal heads. The lower section of the sculpture show interwoven bands that indicate some kind of clothing or ceremonial gear. So here we have Stela 5 from La Venta. There's some very interesting features which I'll describe to you in a moment. But look at this, look at the type of stone. It's like kind of shattered basalt. Here we have the lower part. Here we have the top part, broken obviously, but part of a series of statues or monuments just to the south of the pyramid. We can see some of the detail here and some of the detail here. Now you can't see it easily, but I'll explain it to you so you know what we're looking at. Stela 5 was found between 2 of the carved slabs and displays a historic kind of mythological scene where 2 individuals are standing and a third emerges from a celestial band. The figure at the extreme right is a supernatural being, and its arm is intertwined with the central figure's arm. Again, they're wearing elaborate clothing. So it seems like they're kind of monumental supernatural beings depicted in stone and representing different changes in power. But this is perhaps one of my favourite statues. He's got an elongated head and he's got like a serpent almost like in his muzzle. This is what it's described as. So the elongated head is in like the quasi position, so he's kind of crouching down, and he's got these kind of almost like, they look like tusks, but it's actually a serpent coming out of his kind of mouth or muzzle. He's holding something down in his hands like we see on some of the altars. Again, it could be the serpent again, but this serpent he's holding in his muzzle or mouth. Absolutely fascinating. It's just such a strange culture, such strange symbolism that we're finding. Again, we have the wide back, like we find on many other statues here. There's some fine detail just down here. It's a feline, human, anthropomorphic figure apparently, and this again was found at La Venta. Now we find other ones similar to this at some other sites, and there's another one on display at Jalapa Museum, which is much bigger than this, has a similar style, but this is just fascinating. It could be a representation of an elongated skull, because we know they did cranial deformation at this time. But even more, we have these amazing stelae that have been here for a while. And of course, the giant basalt columns, which always impress me. This one has got some of the smaller pieces, but it's also got some of the giant basalt columns. Again, another row of these, which were found throughout the site. Now, some of these have actually got carvings on. These are real, I just knocked on it. You can actually see carvings on some of these. So they could have had meaning, they could have been used as some kind of like decoration, because they found actually on some of the Olmec heads like a purple dye and possibly different paint. We know they use multiple different colours in all the underground layers, from pink clay, red adobe, yellow clay, and different colours throughout their culture, especially here at Venta where it was found. You can see that when they were excavating it in the 1955 dig. And this is altar number 8, found at Venta. And on top here, you can see lots of different kind of slices and dimples carved out of it. You've got like shapes carved all around it here. You've got the top part. It's quite a small altar. It looks like an ear there. So it makes me wonder if they were starting to make this into an Olmec colossal head, although it's not that colossal compared to the others. On the other side, this is where the shaman emerging from the rock or the earth would have been carved, I believe. It's very badly weathered. There's not too much left of it, but thankfully they preserved it here at Venta. So this just shows you the compacted sand and clay that was employed to build the earthen pyramids, upon which perishable materials were then constructed and now vanished. Stone blocks were part of the foundations, and some of the mounds and small pyramids, stones were employed as internal buttresses. So there was like an internal structure made of these basalt columns and large blocks of stone. In some cases, tenon sculptures were embedded into the slopes of the buildings. These are the ones like El Negro from Tres Zapotes, that is elongated at the back, kind of almost looks like they're flying out somewhere. But these were what were found kind of coming out. You can actually see them kind of coming out of the below either side of the steps. So thanks for watching, Megalithomaniacs. Hope you enjoyed this visit, and we finish with a beautiful view of the main part of the site of Venta. Take care, Megalithomaniacs, and I'll see you next time.